I'm very excited to speak with you. I really enjoyed the book, Let Love Rule, not the least of which because I grew up in Los Angeles in the 80s. So there was a lot of stuff that you were referencing. I was like, Gorky's, yes, or the
Uh,
Odyssey, which burned down, which I completely remember. There were
you
a lot
remember
of
you look too young to remember the Odyssey.
I'm too young to have gone to the Odyssey, but I do remember seeing on the news when it burned down, and I'm actually
Hmm.
even like the Melrose, and thank you for saying that, by the way. Even the Melrose stories you mentioned, I actually wore like a Neo '80s shirt for you, like
All
vintage
right.
shirt. So I loved you seem to have you had such an amazing upbringing both in New York and LA, and I definitely wanna ask you a bit more about Romeo Blue because although I've heard about that, I remember hearing about Romeo Blue when you came out with the Lenny Kravitz album, Let Love Rule. I had never
Hmm.
really known about its background or seen the amazing photos from it, and I wondered, did any of that music, that new wave music, ever come out or leak or anything? Is there a way to
It
hear
did
it?
not. No, it did not. That was a very short phase. I did record under that name when I was at A&M Records, making my demos at the time. They were under Romeo Blue, and but I went through that phase, and I realized that that was an extension of me, but that it wasn't truly me. I was searching, and I was putting on this sort of character to help me get through this. But through doing that, I ended up finding myself, and that was the best part of it. That was what the exercise was about. Once I realized what was going on, that I needed to get away from myself to get back to myself. But it was a really fun time in Los Angeles at that time, and you know, taking on this persona. Uh, yeah, it was cool.
Did you ever
So
used to
that's
go to
the, so that's the, so that's the guy that used to be at the Odyssey all the time.
Did you ever used to go to Phases in Woodland Hills or in Canoga
No,
Park?
I didn't go
Remember?
that far out. No, I didn't go that far.
I used to go to Phases. Phases was like the Valley Odyssey. So like I
Mm.
remember this time. So obviously one of the things that really stood out to me in the book when I was reading is how many kind of, as you said, you went through these phases to find your true voice, but how many offers you turned down, offers
Hmm.
that so many other artists would have absolutely jumped at. And one of them that I stood out to me just as the phrase was there was someone that was trying to like put together a group called the Black Duran Duran,
Well,
and they wanted
that was the vibe. Yeah,
so tell me about that.
it was John McClain, who's a dear friend of mine to this day, uh, and who is a genius record man. Uh, and he's the one who put Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis with Janet Jackson
Oh, wow.
uh, for the Control album, which of course changed everything for both of them. That's one of the many many things he did, and so he wanted to put this group together, and it was myself and four other guys, Tony Lamons, who was my partner, who we were working together, and it sounded like a really good offer. They were really confident about the project and about the concept, and there was all this talk of going to Europe to record, and you know making all these extravagant videos,
Huh.
and fame and fortune, and the whole thing. And when it got down to the end of the meeting, when they were getting ready to, there had been a bunch of meetings already. This was getting down to the paperwork now, or at
Wow.
least some kind of intent, and I just I felt physically ill. I just, something in my spirit did not go with this. And as much as I wanted to be a part of it, and I remember just saying, I can't do it. And all the guys looked at me like, what? Like, you're going to blow this thing for us? And I walked out of the office on the A&M lot. John McClane's office was to the left of the front gates on La Brea. And I walked out, and I walked toward the gates, and, he gave me a bit of a vague conversation, basically saying, who are you to turn this down? Like, what's wrong with you, man? We're offering you the world. But, for me, It was never about fame or money. It was about finding my voice and my true expression. I just wanted to be me. I never grew up saying that I wanted to be famous or be a star. It was never about that. Um, and I walked out. I walked out onto La Brea, and felt a little stupid maybe, but I knew that I was doing the right thing. I knew in my heart that that was not for me, and that was one of the many, deals
Yeah,
that I passed up
absolutely.
during that time. And it's very interesting because people ask me, I was living in a car, I'm living on people's floors and couches, and I'm sleeping in the lounge of A&M Records, and waking up early in the morning before the people that cleaned the studio got there, so I wouldn't get caught. And here I am turning down a major record deal. And I cannot tell you how I did that at that time of being a teenager, and having no money, but I just didn't feel right. And, that's all I can really say. It's so hard to understand how I did it, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting because my very first job in the music business was an internship at Capitol Records, and I realize now we were promoting a band that you
What
had
year
been
was
in.
this?
Oh,
Is that a bad question?
well, I'm old enough to remember the Odyssey, so you can
Okay,
forgive
all
me.
right. So who was the band?
Maggie's Dream.
Oh,
I worked,
that's
but I
funny.
don't. But you weren't in them
I was
anymore.
I was on the phone yesterday with Danny Palomo, the guitar player and one of the singers and writers. I was just talking to him yesterday. It's funny.
Yeah, and that was
Yeah,
another thing you walked away from.
I sang the demos uh, for Maggie's Dream, and they were shopping the deal, and I remember getting the phone call that Capitol Records was indeed interested. And at that time, I was just beginning to find uh, my sound, and I was in
Hmm.
Venice, California at the time. I sang the demos for Maggie's Dream. In fact, we didn't even have a name yet, and they took those demos and shopped them. And at that time, I'd gone back to California. I was living in Venice uh, with Lisa, and she was pregnant at the time. And I got a phone call saying we got offered a major record deal with Capitol Records, and let's go. And I said I couldn't do it. I was just finding my sound. I'd begun making some demos and writing for material that would end up being on Let Love Rule. And I said, I'm sorry, guys, I can't. I
People
wish
must have.
you all the success. And then again, you know, people looking at me like I'm crazy and yelling at me and what's wrong with you. But they ended up making a great record and touring and
Mhm.
doing their thing with Rob Rosa, who ended up being the lead vocalist.
Oh, from
Um,
Menudo and later Ricky Martin's
yes, he
world.
was the
Oh,
he,
okay.
he was the lead singer of Maggie's Dream. Yeah.
I did not realize that. That's interesting. So when you talk about coming into your own sound, another thing that really just in general impressed me about what a, as you call, golden childhood you had is the multiculturalism. You talk about being two-sided. You slip between, Brooklyn and Manhattan, LA and New
Hmm.
York, white and black, Jewish and Christian. You'd go to church and then go to the deli and have bagels and lox afterwards. And like, it's such a magical and a childhood most people don't get to have. And I hear
Hmm.
that in your music, and that I do recall when you first came out with Let Love Rule, people probably were having a trouble categorizing you because of the fact and the musical
Absolutely.
influences you talk about in the book, like in everything from the Jackson 5 and funk music and to the new wave bands that you danced to at the Odyssey. Can you
Hmm.
talk a little bit about how maybe that was an obstacle you had to overcome, not just in finding your own sound,
Hmm.
but like
Well, once I
selling it?
once I once I found the sound, and you know, it was all over the place, just like my life. just like my tastes. And that was the thing, you know, when I was shopping this material, you know, at that time you still had, well, I don't know what it's like now, but you know, you had the black A&R and you had pop.
Oh.
And yeah, so, you know, they'd see the color of my skin and say that I should go and see the people in the black department. I'd play the material, and of course they said it wasn't black enough, and then they'd send me over to the pop side and they say it's, you know, it's too black or whatever, you know. So I was caught in the middle with all the sounds that I was working with. And it took a moment until I met the folks at Virgin America who understood what I was doing, or at least appreciated it. And you know, we went from there. They said, you know, we don't know how we're going to market this, or, you know, really how to approach this, but we believe in the music. And they ended up sending me to Europe first. So I went to Paris, I went to London, I went to Amsterdam, and I went to Hamburg, Germany. And that's where I started playing clubs and, you know, doing promotion. And from there, it grew the following. Then I ended up going all around Europe, and then I came back to America.
Kind of
And,
similar
you
what
know,
happened with Jimi Hendrix, actually.
yeah, you know, the Europeans were more open. Their radio was more open, a bit less format driven or obsessed, you know. And then I came back to America, and I ended up being on college radio.
Yeah.
And you know, at that time it was alternative and college radio, and, you know, did a college radio tour and went around the country, you know, doing interviews and acoustic sets on college radio, and then that's how it began. Yeah, in America.
Did you experience, I mean, you've talked about some of the things you got. Did you experience much like overt racism where people would say like you don't sound black enough, or you don't sound white enough, or you don't sound
I
rock
mean, yeah,
enough,
but
or you
they
don't
were,
sound
but here was the odd thing. They when they were saying I sounded too white, they were referring to rock and roll, which made no sense because black people invented rock and roll. So I could never understand. But at that time, you know, in the streets, uh, you know, black folks were not listening to so much rock and roll. So it was
Yeah.
perceived as more of a white thing because the white kids were, and they're listening to Zeppelin and Cream and the Who and you know, and black people were listening to R&B and soul, you know, primarily. So that's where that whole thing was coming from. I don't think they were trying to be racist. They just really didn't understand what they were saying. And they assumed that I should be making the black music that was on black radio stations at that time. And that's what I was offered uh, many of the times when I was doing these deals. Okay, well, we think you're talented. We understand that, but this is what you should be doing. So we need to hook you up with this producer, and you need to make these kind of records like these black artists are doing on these black radio stations. And that's just not where I was.
Well, you've definitely dabbled in so many genres and blended so many genres, and I know that this isn't in the book because the book ends kind of right when you're just starting to get big. But this month is the 30th anniversary of Justify My Love. Next month is the 30th anniversary of the
Wow.
video, right? 1990. And I'd love to hear the story because I know you co-wrote and produced that song, but I think a lot of people aren't aware of this. And it also was very trip hoppy, which was something people would maybe not necessarily expect from you. How did you come to be involved in that project? It was still pretty early in your career. It was
Yeah,
like a year after.
I had just come off of the first tour, the Let Love Rule tour from Europe, and I'd met Madonna in Europe at a club, and we became friendly, and we used to hang out. I'd see her in Europe in different places when we would both be on tour, and, you know, she would invite me out. She always had these really great parties and like great groups of people that would go dancing and dance all night. And so I knew her in that circle. And then I was in LA before I'd come back to New York. I was working on some demos, and uh, Justify My Love came up, and I loved it, but I knew it wasn't for me. Uh, and so I thought it would be perfect for Madonna. So I called her and I said, I have a number one song for you. And she said, no, you don't. And I said, yes, I do. She said, no, you don't. And I said, where are you? I'll bring it over. So she said, I'm at this studio, whatever it was at the time, somewhere in the 30s. And I had my cassette. I brought it over. And she said, put it in. Go ahead. And I put it in the cassette deck, turned the console up to 10. And out it came. And the whole room got really quiet. And it ended. And she said, play it again. And push play, played it again. And she said, let's record it. And I think we started the next day.
Wow. I'm curious
And
why
that,
you, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, and that was that. We recorded it. I mean, the track was already recorded, so I, had her do her vocal. In fact, my backgrounds were already on there. And yeah, she was getting ready to release the Immaculate Collection, right? That's what it was from.
Mm-hmm.
And so Vogue came out first, killed it, of course, changed everything. And then she was getting ready to make this video, which she did with our mutual friend, Jean-Baptiste Mondino, brilliant director who lives in Paris. And he made that video.
Yeah,
The video was banned, which when you look at it now, you wonder why. It looks very light now, but it was beautiful and sensual and gritty, beautiful black and white film. And since MTV banned it, she decided to sell the video, and each video counted as a single, the way they had it worked out. So I remember people being lined up around Tower Records, like around the block, to get this video of Madonna. And the thing went number one and was, number one globally for I don't know how long. It was enormous. In fact, it was her biggest hit at that point in her career. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. And
I'm curious
yeah.
when you said to her, when you called her up and you said, I have a number one song for you, why you had that self-belief that it would be a number one song. Cause I mean this in no shady way, but it's not a super commercial song on the surface of it. It's a lot,
No,
it's not,
no.
it's talked most of it. It's very slow. It's very
Mhm.
experimental sounding. What made you think with that
But
instinct?
it was super sexy and hard at the same time, and I just felt it. I just knew that there was something very special about the track and the minimal quality, and because it was so minimal, and it was just a gut thing, I felt it, and there it was.
Was it your idea to sample Public Enemy on it?
That was not mine. That was somebody who had showed me that whole thing, which ended up being a whole thing.
Okay.
But because I was going to just program the beat, and then that was put in my face, that whole thing, and then there it was,
When you
And
wrote
in
it
fact,
was,
and in fact, the background vocal that you hear me singing all through the track, where I'm just humming, that was my guide for the lead vocal. I was supposed to write words to that melody, but then it ended up being this spoken word thing, and I kept that in the background as this distant sort of vocal. But that was supposed to be the lead vocal. Yeah.
Are you aware there's a fan-made version on YouTube that's just your moans? If you go on YouTube and
No.
look, if you look
No.
up like "Justify My Love," Lenny Kravitz, it's like "Justify My Love," but just Lenny moaning, and it's just that track you talked about, and it sounds good. It sounds good. Have
That's
you
funny. I
ever
gotta
thought
check that
about
out.
doing a version of like your own, like maybe in
Yes.
your own style?
Yes. I started one actually. I just never finished it. We also have never performed it live, so one day we're gonna have to do that. But yes, I have a version that I may complete and put out.
Do you have any memories? You said that there was, after you convinced her that it was a hit, you kind of almost immediately went into the studio. What was that atmosphere like? What was it like to, hear that iconic song and produce it?
it was just the two of us and my engineers, and it happened in one day. It was very quick, and there are details about that session that I cannot tell you.
Oh,
But it was fun. It
well,
was fun,
now
and it was fun and very sensual.
you can't tell me anything.
Nah, I can't do it.
Is it going to maybe be in the next book?
Uh, when and if I get to that book, yeah, I may let it out then.
The book does end with "to be continued." So,
It does. It does. I didn't want this book to be about fame or anything like that. This is really about me finding my voice
right.
and my expression, and so that's why I ended it. You know, when I was embarking on the Let Love Rule tour.
Well, if you're ever willing to give Yahoo Entertainment an exclusive about what went down at the Justify My Love, you heard, first right of refusal, we will not refuse. But like, you don't know, Lenny, you saying that and then like leaving that dangling there. I'm like, but I do have one more question about that. Is it true? I've read that you had to re-record some parts of it because like a copy of it got lost, like it was FedEx to the wrong address or something like that. Is that an urban legend?
Yes, something did. That's right. I forgot about that.
What happened?
I think the strings were missing or something. And I had to replay the strings. Yeah, there was part of the track missing.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
mentioned this was a very sexy song, sexy
Mm.
moment. Some sexy stuff went down that it's killing me. You will not tell me. Can you not tell me just a little? No?
Just know that it was all very authentic.
Okay. Oh, okay. We have to do a follow-up interview at some, maybe for the 35th anniversary of Justify My Love. But and just to get into just the general idea of sexiness,
Mm.
you've been a heartthrob for decades. People went crazy over your Men's Fitness cover that just ran. So I thought
Oh,
it was very
that's
interesting
very
to,
sweet of you.
well, it's true. I mean, people were like, damn. So I found it very funny actually to read in the book that you kind of weren't like that growing up, that you were like often in the
Not
friend
not
zone. And
not at all.
so like,
No.
how did this Lenny Kravitz, the heartthrob Lenny Kravitz we all know, come about? Because you were always in the friend zone and you like describe yourself as being kind of like awkward or whatever. Like, tell me about
Yeah, I
that.
think I just as you go through life, one might become more confident, and that has nothing to do with cockiness at all. Just confident, just walking in your truth, and I'm still working on that. It's that journey never stops because I'm always changing, evolving. But I think when people started to see me playing music, when I did my first concert, which I talk about in the book at Beverly Hills High, um, people saw me differently that next day, and I think they weren't quite sure what I was all about. And then they saw me on stage, and it was, to them it was another person, because I was quiet, you know.
Do you still not consider, like when I called you a heartthrob or whatever, you got very modest for a moment. Do you
I
still
don't, I
not?
don't, I don't think about any of that. Honestly, I don't think about it. I don't think that I am. I don't really pay attention to that. I'm flattered when somebody says something, but I don't walk out of the house like, yeah, look at me. All right, here we go. No, the complete opposite. The complete opposite. I don't. No.
And you were even in the friend zone, as I call it, with Lisa Bonet for the beginning of your relationship, and that's how.
Which was beautiful. Which was beautiful. That's how the true friendship and true intimacy and bond, was forged through friendship. And that happens sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, as you know, people you stay in that place.
Hmm.
Um, maybe there isn't an attraction, but to go into another uh, area. But for us at that time, it was the proper entry. It was the proper way to really get to know each other's spirits. You know.
Do you think that foundation is why you've been able, quite frankly, you guys are like role models for people who are divorced, who are co-parenting. You're still so close. You're still good
Mm,
friends. You're good friends with with Jason. Like,
absolutely.
it's kind of what any people who have gone through a divorce should aspire to
We
be.
wouldn't we wouldn't we wouldn't have it any other way, you know, let love rule is what it is, you know. And yeah, did it take work? Yes. Did it take time? Yes. But that was our desire to get to that place. And we are one family today, and it's beautiful. And you know, uh, that's the way it should be, you know. The love doesn't go anywhere. The love is still there. It's just in a different way, you know. But the love is still there, and we all love each other, um, and are extremely loyal to each other, and it's wonderful. It's a gift.
So the book ends with obviously the book is called Love Let Love Rule. The book
Hmm.
ends with when the album is just beginning to break.
Hmm.
It also ends with, very shortly after your marriage and the birth of your daughter Zoe. So
Hmm.
what made you choose to end it right there as opposed to earlier or a little later?
Well, that the book is about me finding my voice, and here, I found the beginning of my voice that would carry me to this day, and wanted to show a little about going on the road and how that was, and uh, and I thought that's it. There it is. Because from that point on, it gets real interesting.
Yeah, that's why we need a second book, Lenny. I
I
need
mean,
the
this was
just about my love
interesting.
story.
Yes, this
Oh, it
was
was super
interesting, and
interesting.
but it gets complicated. It gets really complex, and so that's where uh, the next chapter will begin.
So you are
Being thrown out into this world uh, as I was, and
have you
how life changed.
so can we confirm that you're writing a second
I mean, I haven't started, to be honest. I have not started. It's in my head, and I'm sure that I will. I can't tell you when I will, but I'm sure it will happen. Yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to reading that. Well, to wrap it up with some more stuff about Let Love Rule, um, the song Let Love Rule, have you seen
Mm.
that taking on any kind of new meaning in current times or in recent years? Because it's an anthem
Always.
that, yeah.
It just continues evolving, uh, and like so many great songs by whomever, Um, and I say great because these songs are given to me. They're not mine. They're given to me. Um, it sounds like it was written yesterday. This world is quite interesting. And if you'd asked me 30 years ago or 31 years ago when I wrote the song, if I thought the world would be in a much better place 30 years later, based on the direction that I thought we were going in, I would have said yes, absolutely. We're going to learn so much in 30 years. We're going to evolve into a place where we can learn to live together better, uh, despite the differences around the world, and we'll be able to respect people for who they are, even if it's not who we are and how we live, and we can work together, and then everybody can go home and do their thing, right? But to see where things have gone and how things are going backwards really it really trips me out, uh, to see where we are today and how much of the hate that was always there, although subdued publicly perhaps by certain groups of people, um, has a platform now, and they have a confidence in that. And it's real interesting. But this is not an American problem. This is a global
Yeah.
problem. And those of us that stand for love and unity and equality and inclusion and all of those good things, uh, we need to, you know, work harder and represent and do the best we can uh, within this system that right now is the system, you know. But the system needs to be changed. The system does not work, and we need to go higher. You know, we need to go higher. But this is the journey that we are on, and
Yeah.
but yeah, the song stands.
To that point, one other song I want to ask about specifically on that album that is,
Mm.
you know, unfortunately, it would probably be called Mr. Uber Driver now, but Mr. Cab Driver. Other than the cab part, it's still, you know, obviously, you know, very relevant. Was that based on an actual like incident or
Oh,
incidents?
absolutely. It used to happen all the time where I would step off the curb to hail the taxi, and it would pass me by and pick up a white woman like 10 feet in front of me. Um, and the day that I wrote that song, I was trying to get to the studio because my studio was in Hoboken, New Jersey, and I was trying to get a taxi to get through the tunnel, and they kept passing me and passing me and passing me, and you know, I ended up chasing one of the guys who passed me, and we ended up getting in an altercation. And then by the time I'd gotten to the studio, I was extremely late. I was so pissed off that I just wrote the song. It came out, and
But there was
obviously it's
humor
about,
to it.
of course, it's about racism, but there's, it's veiled, behind this thing, this cab driver, you know, and I remember getting a letter from a cab driver in New York City that he'd written to my management, or however he got it to me, saying that he was a white man and that he picks up black people and takes them wherever they want to go, and he's not prejudiced, and so it was going around the community.
Are there any other songs that you wrote back in the early days of your career that you feel resonate at maybe even more or just as much as they did, like lyrically, as when
I
you
mean,
wrote them?
songs on that album, like "Does Anybody Out There Even Care?" That's another one that still resonates strongly today, about how our dream, the dream that Martin Luther King talks about, you know, has been lost, and where we are. And when you listen to the lyrics, it sounds like it was written yesterday.
Wow. One thing I want to wrap with that's in the book that's sort of relevant to all this, or related to all this, I should say, is you grew up with some very awesome, strong women. Of course, your mother, who was,
Hmm.
seems like, I wish I could have interviewed her at one time, but reading about her in the book, amazing stories, and obviously was so groundbreaking on television. But I didn't realize you had all these like godmothers, like Cicely Tyson and Toni
Hmm.
Morrison and Diane Carroll were your godmothers. This is like, what did all being around all these strong women growing up, these
Yeah,
strong black women,
yeah.
teach you?
Tony wasn't, but she was in the group
Okay, she was in the
of,
group.
yeah, but it was amazing being around these beautiful, strong, intelligent, talented, creative, spiritual Black women. Just amazing examples of human beings and of integrity, and I mean, their artistry. Um, I was really fortunate, and I always felt, because of the issues I had with my father, with these women, I always felt seen and heard, and I had a very easy time communicating with them, and they gave me love, and yeah, influenced me greatly.
They raised you right. This has been a wonderful interview. This is your last chance to tell me anything more about what happened in the Justified. I got all day. You probably don't. It's your
I'll
last
give you
chance.
a I'll give you a call.
Please do. Anytime. I'll just be sitting here by the Zoom waiting for you to log back
Uh,
on. But thank you for talking with me about
it
that
was
and about
good talk. It was good
everything.
talking to you.
Yeah, it was great speaking with you. The
And
book is great. I look forward, hopefully, to a volume two with all the crazy stuff later. But I think that this is a really interesting glimpse into like a really unique life. So thank you so much for
uh,
talking with me about it.
thank you. Take care.
You too. Take care. Be safe out there.
All right, you too. Bye bye.